Hello everyone, welcome to the Ichimoku.co daily stock market review for the trading day ending Monday, August 31st. Firstly to the S&P 500, and here we see a confirmed change of trend today. Black body candle making a lower high and lower low. That follows the very small body being formed at the end of this significant first time frame uptrend that found resistance at the Kijun-sen indicator around the 1999-2000 level, very close to 2000. The sellers have come into the market quite strongly today, closing with control, very strongly committed. They did lose some commitment towards the end of the day around the 1968 level of support, and that's going to be an important test for the market tomorrow. And if the sellers are strong enough to breach through there, we should quite easily end up trading down to about 1955, an area that we should be watching very closely for continued support. One thing to worry about here is the market has attempted to retrace this very strong sell-off and found resistance at the Kijun-sen. The Kijun-sen will be an important benchmark, as will the round number 2000. So strong resistance overhead, but if that's breached in a bullish manner, then we could see the market appreciate up through to the 2019 level. As I've mentioned, the problem here is the sellers coming back into the market fairly strongly. Good solid net downside momentum in line with the trend being bearish in the longer term and the medium term timeframes, and now the short term timeframe, and it suggests that we could see continued selling in this market, but a lot depends on whether we breach this 1968 level. Moving next to the Dow 30, and very similar type of candle here, probably not as strong control. The close was a little bit closer to the low. This close is only just below the midpoint level, so suggesting that the sellers haven't been as strong here in terms of the control that they've gathered, but the build of momentum to the downside is there, but a greater loss of commitment as this market found support at the Tenkan-sen indicator, and this support at the Tenkan-sen indicator may be very important, and this is how we tend to see markets transition. They'll break through, say, the top of the Tenkan-sen, then rally or fall back towards it, and then rally off that region. So we'll be watching for the buyers to come back into this market, but there isn't any strong indication here based on this candle that the buyers are strong in this market. The story here is a new first time frame downtrend, and that the sellers aren't appearing as strong as they probably should be. Now, if the Tenkan-sen is breached to the downside, looking to 16,312 to potentially hold as support, but if we see the buyers come back into this market, we have strong resistance overhead at 16,735 and 16,805. Next to the Nasdaq 100, and here we see a fairly strong close here for the sellers between the midpoint level and the lows, suggesting that control is moderately strong. It's certainly they have taken control. It's not as strong as we saw with the S&P. We did see some very strong price rejection from the 4308 level as the market attempted to rally up through there, and was strongly rejected from there, and has closed in a bearish manner down below the 4280 level of support, and this 4278 region. The sellers coming into this market in line with the strong resistance overhead and the Ichimoku cloud being above the price action suggests we could see this market trade lower, but we should be watching 4248 for support, and then importantly the Kijun-sen indicator around 4208. Moving next to the sectors, and there's been some quite strong buying in the energy sector for today, up 1.11%. The market holding up above the Kijun-sen indicator for the second consecutive day, suggesting we've seen a flow of funds into this sector away from others, and we'll look at those others in a minute. But the third consecutive white body candle, buyers continue with control, and importantly for the second consecutive day, the market finding support very close to the Tenkan-sen indicator, which trades at 63.85. The opportunity is here for the buyers to continue the trend to the upside. Looking at relative strength comparative, just moving outside of the upper band, and suggesting that if the buyers are strong enough, they can develop this outperformance against the overall market quite strongly. Momentum of relative strength is above the 100% level and well up above the upper band, suggesting that the momentum here is strong and that we could see a continuation of this trend to the upside. But we do have this previous support area just at this area where the market has been unable to breach, around 66.47, and it may be an area where we see the buying cease. So we will be watching that area very closely, as that support there may turn into resistance. And the sector where there's been a very strong flow of funds out of has been the healthcare sector. XLV is the ETF, the sector ETF that we're looking at. And here for quite some time we saw very strong outperformance against the overall market, then a neutral performance for quite some time, and now just for today and the previous day we've seen the beginnings of some very strong underperformance by looking at the relative strength comparative to the SPY ETF, which is the S&P 500 ETF, and we're now moving down below that lower band and well below the middle of the bands, and suggesting that we could see further downside here. The market is trading down below the Ichimoku cloud, so the overall bias is negative, and in line with this bearish candle, a strong black body candle, we certainly could see the healthcare sector ETF test down to the Kijun-sen support around 66.90. In terms of that relative strength comparative, the momentum is down below the 100% level and is well down below that lower band, suggesting that the momentum to the downside is quite strong, and we could see further downside over the next few days. Looking next to some stocks, and the first is Facebook. FB is the code, and here we see Facebook trading within the Ichimoku cloud, finding some resistance very close to the top of the cloud, and today the sellers coming in fairly strongly, a black body candle, sellers in control. We could see, if we do see a continuation of this trend to the downside, we could see some strong support coming in at the bottom of the cloud tomorrow if that selling continues. The bottom of the cloud at the moment is roughly about 88.67, 65, so looking to strong support to come in there. Looking at relative strength comparative, there was an opportunity here for the market to outperform, but we've seen the relative strength comparative move back to within the bands, and we've seen the momentum of that relative strength start to come off and move back in the bands as well, suggesting that there is a lack of strength in terms of the relative performance to the overall market. We are seeing volatility start to plateau here, and it's suggesting that we may not see this trend develop further to the upside. So we'll be watching that upper cloud there at roughly about 92.50 for tomorrow very closely, but also watching here for support down below. And if we see a strong bearish bracket and then strong bearish follow through, we could see the market develop further to the downside. Looking next to Sprint Nextel, S is the code, and that was one that we were watching quite closely, where we'd seen some very strong buying previously. Today we've seen formation of a black body candle, and it's a candle where the sellers have taken control, and this is suggesting we could see this market start to come off. Potentially some support at this previous resistance area, roughly around the round number $5. So looking for support to come in around there. If that area is breached, the Tenkan-sen should hold as fairly strong support, trading down around $4.64. In terms of relative strength, still strongly outperforming the overall market by trading well outside of those the upper bands, but the bands are very wide apart, and suggesting that this relative performance may be overdone, and we have seen the relative performance start to move back towards that upper band. In terms of momentum and relative strength, still trending up fairly strongly, well up above the 100% level, but has moved back within the bands. We'll be watching whether that moves down and whether we see a lessening of that the momentum of relative strength. But a lot depends on how this market reacts tomorrow. If we see strong follow through to the downside, the market breach down through that previous resistance area, failing to hold a support, then we could see an eventual price action move down to about this $4.64 area. Looking next to Caterpillar, CAT is the code, and here we've seen some strong buying over the last few days in Caterpillar, and the strongest of those days has been today. A large range in this candle, suggesting some eagerness from the buyers. Buyers closing up towards the high, so the buyers in control, and good solid upside momentum is determined by the size of the body of the candle. So an opportunity here for the buyers to trade to higher levels. We do have some potential resistance around this previous swing low, just roughly around this area where the market's closed, so extending roughly up to about 76.80, which was about the high of today's trading. But in terms of relative strength comparative, strongly outperforming the overall market now, and momentum of relative strength is moving higher and up above the 100% level, suggesting we could see further upside in this market. The problem here is that it's only in that medium-term time frame and short-term, and we still are trading down below the Ichimoku cloud. If we do eventually rally significantly higher, we're likely to find strong resistance at the bottom of the cloud, so this rally is likely to be short-lived. Now, just one thing that I want to do here, I've got the Dow 30 stocks up here, and what I want to do is just flick through them very quickly and show you something very interesting here. And the important thing is that looking at these stocks on the daily charts, very few of them, if any at all, are up above the Ichimoku cloud. So that suggests that in that longer term time frame, this market certainly may be in trouble. You would have thought that a market that's been quite strong for quite some time would have at least a decent percentage of these stocks up above the cloud and have some sort of a positive bias in that longer term time frame. And I think that this, the fact that very few stocks are up above the cloud, says something about the lack of strength here in this short term time frame on the daily charts with the Dow 30. So just flicking through, we're looking at Chevron, Caterpillar below, Goldman Sachs, Intel, even ExxonMobil, where there's been some buying come in recently, is still below the cloud. Below the cloud, JP Morgan, below the cloud, IBM, Verizon, very few of them, and I think we'll be hard pressed to find one that is actually trading up above the cloud. And here we go, Nike is one that is trading above the cloud and strongly outperforming the overall market here, and momentum is quite strong, so that's one that is looking quite good and has found support today at the Ichimoku cloud. So the opportunity is here for the buyers in Nike. Moving next to Procter & Gamble, below the cloud, another one that's moving below the cloud, the Travelers. Above the cloud, Home Depot is trading up above each of the Ichimoku indicators, looking moderately strong. But if we look at the last few candles, very small-bodied candles, some doji candles, so a lot of indecision, and suggesting that we could see this market come back towards the cloud and attempt to find support there. Moving next to Microsoft below the cloud, Johnson & Johnson below, McDonald's below, United Health below, Pfizer below, General Electric below, 3M below, Visa trading just within the cloud, attempted to break out but a lack of follow through, and now trading just below the cloud, so a loss of strength from Visa. United Technologies below the cloud, Boeing below the cloud, Merck below the cloud. So back to Chevron here. So we've gone through the Dow 30 stocks, and I think there's only about 2, maybe 3 that are up above the cloud. So it says something about the lack of strength in this market in that longer term